And we are thrilled to be joined by one of the newest members of the Silver and Black, Darien Porter. And Darien, like we were kind of just joking a second ago, like what has the past 30-ish days been like for you on the field, off the field, as a human being trying to figure out what am I doing in this next chapter?
Yeah, so, obviously approaching week 2 of actually being in Las Vegas, being a part of the Raiders. But, leading everything before that, kind of sticking to, you go through the draft, but then you have about 2 weeks before, you ship off. So making sure you're on top of, being in shape, still working at your craft, lifting weights, staying, all that kind of stuff you've been doing, but making sure, it's real now. So, not slacking off on that. And then just once you get here, getting acclimated, making sure you're on top of all your stuff, you're studying, you're eating right, you're sleeping right. So it's not like anything you haven't been accustomed to as a collegiate athlete, as a collegiate football player, but now it's just times 100, the stakes, and it's not just I'm a college football player, this is your job. So you have to act accordingly.
It's interesting, too, where we were looking at today, and it was we're sitting here on a Thursday afternoon, and we do appreciate you hanging out late with us because everyone's going home, but you made sure to carve out some time for us. But, you just wrapped up, I guess this would be OTA 2. When you look at, and I know it's such a small sample size, but what's the biggest difference between going through an OTA as opposed to being on the field? What was it, last week or 2 weeks ago for rookie minicamp, right? Obviously, more guys, but what's kind of the biggest difference in kind of intensity in terms of the actual, call it 2 hours of a practice?
I think the intensity is the same. I think we had a lot of great energy for rookie minicamp, and obviously that carries into OTAs now that you're joined in with the veterans. I would say, you're now OTAs have started, you're going against guys who have, been in the league 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they just have that kind of seasoning and experience on you when you're not going against other rookies who are still trying to figure out scheme and, trying to figure themselves out a little bit. So in that sense, there's a little bit of an adjustment, they play a little faster, they're a little craftier, but, that's where as a rookie, where you have to really study and lock in and be really on top of all the details that come with it.
It's interesting too, and DBs are one of my favorite position groups because I mean this in the nicest way. I love the irrational confidence that DBs have, right? I love the fact that it's hey, you can be locked down 9 out of 10 reps, but hey, you get burned on that 10th, but you got to come right back and be no, I'm still that dude. For a guy like you in your position, a rookie, like you said, 2 weeks here in the building, how do you kind of keep that confidence when there's so much new being thrown at you, right? New team, new city. Now the vets are here. You're going against, like you said, guys that have been in the league for 4, 5, 6 years. How do you kind of keep that confidence, that short memory, if you will?
I think it's just, reminding yourself that you're here for a reason. You wouldn't be in this position if, you didn't have the ability and the talent to. So, not letting that one play you may give up, dictate how the rest of the game, how the rest of the practice goes. You have to, you learn from it, you ground yourself, but then it's I got drafted or I got signed for a reason. I can do this. I have the talent, I have the ability. So it's just really believing in yourself and having that confidence in yourself to bounce back and make the next play.
What do you think, and again, I know it's still so early in the process for all you guys, but what do you think the biggest, I don't want to say differences, but what do you notice between going against college athletes like you were doing 6 months ago and NFL wide receivers? Outside of the speed, like you said, is there something different where you look at the way they operate and you go, oh, okay, this is a little bit different than last year?
I think in college, everyone kind of receivers, they kind of live and die by their receiver coach. They do what's instructed, and you can kind of tell when you study film, okay, this is what they do off the line, this is what their coach teaches off the line, because they all kind of follow that same trend. But when you get to the league, obviously, different receivers and different body types, they're going to do what's catered to their skill set and their body. So, you get a 6'5" receiver, who might not move as well as someone who's 5'11", 6 foot. He's not going to be doing the same things off the line. So, he's going to cater his game to what he does best. So just kind of picking up on those things. And obviously that comes with studying, repetition, and actually learning the receivers you're going up against. But I would say just in this short time, probably that, no receiver is going to no two receivers are going to play the same.
It's interesting too, and we're so lucky we have Eric Allen, our soon-to-be Hall of Famer, who's a DB and obviously one of the best at what he's done in the history of this game. But like one thing that he always talks about too is the importance of studying for DBs in particular. So like again, like when you look at the success that you've had at the position, like what do you think that breakdown is in terms of being physically gifted and having those abilities and those gifts, but also the mental side of it too? Like, is it like a 50-50 split, or do you think that you have to lean more on one or the other?
I don't know if I'd necessarily say it's a 50-50 split, but I would say your athleticism and your physical talents can only carry you so far, and they can only carry you for so long. You see the DBs who stick around in the league and play up into their mid 30s. Their athleticism that they had at 22 is long left them. But the thing is that mentally and on a football IQ level, they're so elevated. So they don't have to, be as athletic because they already know what's about to happen. So that studying, if you can marry that up with your athleticism and then obviously be on top of the game mentally, like that's where you see the DBs make the most plays and take, those huge strides early on.
So much has been made about kind of the transition that you went from playing the offensive side of football to playing DB. Do you study the game differently as a DB than you do as a receiver, do you think?
Yeah. I mean, obviously just being on a different side of the ball. But I think the thing that helps me is that since I played, 3 years on the offensive side, that I know a lot about that side of the ball. And even though it's different from college to the pros, you can still pick up on things that receivers formationally, who's on the ball, who's off the ball, what's the split distribution between the 1 and 2 receiver that I can take as a DB and then use it to my advantage to kind of start to tell put the puzzle pieces together pre-snap and anticipate what might be coming.
It's interesting where, I think the main word, I guess maybe one of the two words that come to mind all the time, and we've heard a lot from Pete in the early goings of kind of him putting his fingerprints on this program is competition and energy, right? And you're out there at the OTA today, and you can feel that energy, right? Like it is a palpable atoms in the universe. Like you can feel guys wanting to go and wanting to do their best, even as we sit here in late May, right? Like what has it been like to kind of feed off of Pete's energy in the early going here?
It's infectious, really. Like even in the team meetings, it's always competition. We do certain things like have shoot-offs, and like there's a basketball hoop in the team meeting room, and they'll do shoot-offs just to start the day off with some kind of competition, But it definitely bleeds down from coach to player to everyone that touches the program. And I think that the competition is the most important thing for a successful, like what builds a successful program is the brotherhood and then the competition, obviously.
Yeah, and I think it's, really for us, like we talked about kind of in the early goings of seeing Pete and Spytech do their thing here, like that's been a lot of fun for us to see is that forever level of competition. But, one thing that I really found interesting about your story and one thing that brought a smile to me is I am our resident special teams guy. I love special teams and hearing your defensive coordinator at Iowa State talk about it, and obviously hear you talk about it, like that willingness to contribute in that phase of the game, especially for a rookie, right? A young dude that we talked about kind of not figuring it out, but still learning on the fly what it takes to be an NFL player. Like, how important is it for you to be, if you get that call, to be able to come in and contribute on the coverage teams?
It means everything. That's how I first got my start. That's kind of what helped lead my transition from offense to defense. So, if I have the privilege to play on the special teams units, which is something I definitely want to do regardless of if I'm a starter or not, they're going to get everything that I have because I take a lot of pride in it. To me, special teams, scheme matters, but it's all about how much do you want to beat the guy across from you and how much are you willing to invest into the team. To me, that's like the kind of mindset you have to have.
Yeah, and again, I think it's just one of those, each play just means so much, and it is like, in so many ways, just kind of the ultimate like momentum shifting play is kind of how I view it, and it's a lot and I love our kickers and punters and specialists, so it's a good deal. But hey, man, before I let you get out of here, the last thing I wanted to ask you was, we were talking to Coach Haycock, right,
Yep.
last week, and he brought up the fact, and we've heard it from a couple of people too, about, you had every opportunity to not be at Iowa State, right? You were there for, it was like 6 years, and you had these opportunities to maybe do something different or to have another experience. And he goes, it said so much about you that you were loyal to the program, you wanted to be there, you wanted to finish what you started. Like, why was it so important for you to kind of go the entire duration of your time, your collegiate experience there, when, candidly, you don't see a lot of guys do that anymore?
Well, really, the way Coach Campbell got me to Iowa State was that, he wanted to build something and accomplish things and reach new heights that program hadn't seen. And he wanted to see me succeed as a football player, but also as a man. And I knew that from the day I met him. And once you're there, I had fully bought into that, taking this program to new heights and leaving it better than you found it. So, yeah, my journey is it's not normal. You stay there for 6 years. You play 2 different sides of the ball. You don't start until year 6. But it didn't really matter for me because all I wanted to do was be my best and give my best to the program so that we could do things we hadn't done before. And then my play would, if I played well, it would take care of everything else, post-collegiately.
Yeah, and I mean, it certainly seems to have worked out for you in that regard, too. And again, I think it is just really cool and unique to see guys in this NIL era that we're living in, where you do see guys have the opportunity to go and get the bag, which is great, but to kind of have these different experiences, these different stops. I think it's pretty cool to have one guy just say, hey, I went to Iowa State. I started at Iowa State. I finished at Iowa State. So pretty cool. And we're looking forward to everything that you're going to bring here to the team here in Las Vegas. Well, man, I haven't met you in person, so congratulations, first of all, on being one of the newest Raiders. Best of luck throughout the rest of the offseason program. We'll talk to you soon, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you for your time.